The Caribbean awoke today to an atmosphere thick with tension and the spectre of confrontation. In the early hours of Thursday morning, Venezuela announced the launch of what President Nicolás Maduro has dramatically called a resistance military operation. It is, in his words, a mobilization from north to south, from east to west, from all the coasts of the Venezuelan Caribbean, from the border with Colombia. Maduro declared that the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, with all their equipment, troops and officers, were now consolidating positions to secure the nation's defensive system. He claimed the country has established more than 284 battlefronts, though he offered no details on how many troops had been deployed. Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino confirmed that these deployments included oil facilities, airports, public services, as well as border and coastal points, signaling that Caracas is preparing for both external and internal threats. For Venezuelans, the images are striking. Soldiers stand in formation aboard the amphibious landing ship AB Los Llanos, banners flying and rifles at their sides. Jets streak across the skies. Militia members, many of them ordinary civilians armed and uniformed, march and even dance in Caracas squares as music blares. The message is clear. Venezuela is mobilizing not just its professional armed forces, but its population for what it casts as a struggle for survival. But the backdrop to this operation lies beyond Venezuelan borders. In recent weeks, the United States deployed 8 naval vessels to the southern Caribbean. Washington described the mission as a campaign against international drug trafficking. But in Caracas, the maneuvers are seen differently, interpreted as a tightening noose, a naval siege meant to squeeze Venezuela into submission. The crisis deepened when US forces fired a missile that destroyed a Venezuelan boat. President Donald Trump, posting triumphantly on his Truth Social account, described the dead as 11 narco-terrorists who had set sail from Venezuelan shores. The Venezuelan government rejected that narrative outright, insisting that none of the deceased belonged to the feared Tren de Aragua gang. For Maduro, the strike was not a victory over traffickers, but proof of aggression, proof that the United States had crossed into open hostility. His response was swift. Venezuelan fighter jets flew over one of the US warships, a daring maneuver that immediately drew a warning from Trump. Speaking to reporters in Washington, Trump was blunt. If they fly in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down. His words left no doubt that US captains have been authorized to respond with lethal force. The rhetoric has escalated into a dangerous war of words. Maduro calls it a resistance against imperial siege. Trump calls it a campaign against terrorists and traffickers. Each frames the confrontation in terms designed to rally domestic support, but each brings the region closer to miscalculation. For Maduro, the mobilization serves multiple purposes. Domestically, it is a show of power, an attempt to unify a population battered by economic collapse, food shortages, and international isolation. By urging citizens to enlist in the Bolivarian militia, he transforms civilians into defenders of the revolution, blurring the line between state and society. Internationally, it is a plea for recognition, a declaration that Venezuela remains sovereign, ready to fight, even if the odds are stacked against it. For Trump, the standoff serves a different political stage. With an eye on projecting toughness abroad, the US president portrays Venezuela as both a threat and a symbol of American resolve. He invokes law and order, narco-terrorism, and the right of the United States to defend itself in its hemisphere. The images on both sides reinforce these narratives. In Panama, the USS Lake Erie looms at dock, its deck bristling with weapons. In Caracas, militia members wave rifles and flags, cheered on by officials who describe them as guardians of sovereignty. Each image is designed to speak not just to domestic audiences, but to the world. Yet beneath the propaganda, the danger is real. Analysts warn that the Caribbean is now a theatre where one mistake, one jet flying too close, one commander misjudging intent could trigger a spiral of retaliation. Neither Caracas nor Washington has openly declared war, but both have placed their militaries on hair-trigger alert. For Venezuelans, the spectacle is at once terrifying and strangely familiar. This is a nation that has lived under sanctions, shortages, and political crackdowns for years. Now, the talk of resistance and mobilization taps into nationalist pride, even as it raises the spectre of greater suffering. For Americans, the crisis is more distant, filtered through news conferences and presidential statements. But the consequences of escalation could be profound, drawing the United States deeper into conflict in a region it has long claimed as its sphere of influence. The Organization of American States has called for restraint. Regional governments from Bogotá to Brasilia have expressed alarm. Yet so far, neither Maduro nor Trump shows any sign of backing down, and so the Caribbean waits. Warships linger off Venezuela's coast. Militias march in Caracas streets. Leaders trade threats across podiums and social media. Venezuela calls its mobilization resistance. Washington calls it provocation. Both claim defense, both invoke justice, and both risk tipping an already volatile standoff into open conflict. As the sun sets over La Guaira and silhouettes of warships cut across the horizon, the words of the two presidents echo in the air. Maduro promises that the Bolivarian armed forces are consolidating positions. Trump insists that if Venezuelan jets fly dangerously close, they'll be shut down. It is a duel of wills, fought with rhetoric, warships and soldiers. And tonight, in the waters of the Caribbean, the world watches nervously for the next move. So we are activating right now from north to south, from east to west, from all the coasts of the Venezuelan Caribbean, from the border with Colombia. The Bolivarian National Armed Forces, encouraging with all the equipment, troops, officers. We are then going to the consolidation of positions and the consolidation of the national defensive system.
El mandatario mencionó que había 284 frentes de batalla en todo el país, pero no precisó el número de tropas desplegadas. Según el ministro de Defensa, Vladimir Padrino, el despliegue abarca instalaciones petroleras, de servicios públicos, aeropuertos y puntos de frontera y costeros. La movilización militar venezolana tiene lugar luego que Estados Unidos desplegara en las últimas semanas 8 buques al Caribe Sur para lo que definió como maniobras contra el narcotráfico internacional. El gobierno estadounidense no planteó oficialmente que fuera una acción directa contra Venezuela, pero Maduro ha denunciado un asedio. La situación escaló después de que fuerzas estadounidenses destruyeron una lancha con un misil y mataron a 11 narcoterroristas, en palabras del presidente Donald Trump, que habían zarpado de costas venezolanas. El gobierno venezolano ha señalado que ninguno de los fallecidos pertenecía a la banda Tren de Aragua, como aseguró Washington. Luego de ese episodio, Venezuela sobrevoló uno de los buques estadounidenses con un caza.
But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want, okay?
Maduro ha llamado también a los ciudadanos a alistarse en la milicia bolivariana, un cuerpo castrense compuesto por civiles.